How to worry less. Buddhist wisdom for hard times. Buddhist teachings on worry. Letting go of anxiety. Mindfulness in difficult times. Buddhist meditation for stress, worry, and impermanence. Buddhist approach to fear. Peace of mind through Buddhism. Emotional resilience. Buddhism. Dealing with uncertainty. Buddhism. Calming the mind. Meditation. Buddhist philosophy. Daily life. Suffering and detachment. Overcome anxiety with mindfulness. Mental peace. Buddhist practices. The storm outside isn't what's exhausting you. It's the storm inside your own mind. I know that sounds impossible, right? We spend so much time trying to fix the world around us. But what if I told you that's not where the real battle is happening? You might think your exhaustion comes from the bills you can't pay, the relationships that are falling apart, or the uncertainty about the future. But in reality, the heaviest weight you're carrying is invisible. And until you see it, you'll keep trying to fix the wrong problem. So, what if you could find complete calm without waiting for life to finally settle down? When life feels like it's crashing down around you, the natural instinct is to fight the chaos, to try and push it all back into place. You tell yourself, if I could just get this one thing under control, this debt, this job, this relationship, then I could finally breathe. But here's the truth. There will always be another storm. One finishes, another begins. And if your peace depends on the weather outside, you're in for a lifetime of waiting. Buddhism offers a radically different path. It doesn't promise to remove every problem in your life. It doesn't say the waves will stop. What it does promise is that you can learn to anchor yourself so deeply that no matter how high the waves get, you don't drown. Think of it like this. If you're in the middle of the ocean and you fight the current, you'll exhaust yourself in minutes. But if you learn how to float, to breathe, to move with the water instead of against it, you can stay there for hours, even days. The storm doesn't end, but you survive it with your strength intact. I remember a time when I was in the middle of my own ocean. Everything seemed to collapse at once. Financial troubles, a friendship that ended unexpectedly, health issues that made every day feel heavier than the last. I kept telling myself, if I can just fix these problems, I'll be okay. But the more I fought, the more I sank. Then I came across a simple Buddhist teaching. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. At first, it sounded like a nice little quote you'd see on a coffee mug. But when I actually practiced it, when I stopped trying to control the entire ocean and started focusing on the way I was responding, everything changed. Instead of waking up thinking, how do I fix my life today? I began asking, how do I care for my mind today? That shift was everything. Because here's the thing, your mind is not just a passenger in the storm. It's the captain. And if the captain is panicking, the whole ship goes down. So, how do you actually calm the captain? How do you find that inner stillness when the noise outside is deafening? It's not about ignoring reality. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about something far more powerful, something that most people never realize. And that's exactly what I'm going to share with you next. Part 1. Not everything requires a reaction. You know, not everything in life deserves a reaction. Meet Daniel. He's a kind, hard-working guy in his late 42nd, the kind of man who helps neighbors carry groceries, never misses his kids' soccer games, and always holds the elevator for strangers. But lately, Daniel has been feeling drained like every day. His energy just evaporates before the afternoon even comes. It's not just the bills. It's not just the news. It's the little things. the driver who cuts him off on the freeway, the coworker who makes snide comments during meetings, the family member who never seems to appreciate anything. Every time one of these moments happens, Daniel reacts, snapping back, defending himself, or replaying the conversation in his head for hours. And every reaction takes a little piece of him. Buddhism has a simple yet powerful way of explaining this. Imagine your mind is like a still pond. Every time you react in anger, frustration, or defensiveness, it's like throwing a rock into the water. The ripples spread, disturbing the calm surface. The more rocks you throw, the harder it is to see clearly. Daniel started to realize he wasn't just reacting to protect himself, he was reacting out of habit. Out of the fear that if he didn't respond immediately, he'd lose control or look weak. But here's the paradox. The more he reacted, the more control he actually lost. So he tried something different. The next time a coworker made a sarcastic comment, instead of firing back, he took a breath. He noticed the tightness in his chest, the heat rising in his face. He let the feeling sit there for a moment, and then he chose not to respond. At first, it felt unnatural, almost wrong. But here's what happened. The situation passed. The coworker moved on, and Daniel kept his peace. He didn't carry the weight of that moment home with him. This is the heart of Buddhist mindfulness, pausing before reacting, observing your emotions as they rise, choosing your response instead of being pulled into someone else's storm. Because every unnecessary reaction is like opening the door and letting a thief steal your peace. It's not about becoming passive or letting people walk over you. It's about protecting the most valuable thing you have, your energy, your clarity, your inner calm. And the truth is, most situations don't require you to throw your energy into the fire. When you stop reacting to every negative word or action, you start to notice something magical. You have more space, more patience, more strength for the things that truly matter. And I want you to think about this for a second. What's one recent moment where you reacted instantly and later wished you hadn't? If you're comfortable, share it in the comments. You never know. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone in this struggle. Because here's the thing. We can't control what others say or do. The world will keep sending waves our way. But we can decide whether those waves knock us over or simply pass by while we remain steady. So, the next time you feel that rush of emotion, pause, take a breath, watch it for a moment before you decide what to do. You might be surprised at how much calmer your life feels when you stop giving every storm a reaction. Part 2. Focus on the present instead of predicting the future. There's a saying in Buddhism, anxiety is born in the gap between now and what might be. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 35, works in marketing, and from the outside, she's doing great. Good job, nice apartment, friends who care. But every night, as she lays in bed, her mind starts spinning. What if I mess up the presentation tomorrow? What if the company downsizes next month? What if I never figure my life out? By the time she finally falls asleep, she's already lived through a dozen possible disasters, none of which have actually happened. And when morning comes, she wakes up exhausted, as if she fought an invisible battle all night. That's the thing about worry. It doesn't just visit you in the moment. It steals moments from your future and your present. Buddhism teaches that our suffering often comes from leaving the only place we actually exist, this moment. The mind is like a time traveler, running ahead into a future filled with what-ifs, or drifting back to old regrets. And every time it does, we get pulled further away from peace. One evening, Sarah's friend invited her to a mindfulness workshop. The teacher said something simple that hit her hard. Right now, in this very breath, you are safe. You are whole. You are enough. The teacher had them close their eyes. Feel the rise and fall of the breath. Notice the weight of the body on the chair. Hear the faint hum of the air conditioner. At first, Sarah thought, "This is silly. How can focusing on my breath fix my problems?" But then, something shifted. She realized that in that moment, her boss wasn't criticizing her. The layoffs weren't happening. Her life wasn't falling apart. She was just here, breathing. And the more she anchored herself to the present through breath, through noticing the little details around her, the quieter her mind became. It doesn't mean the future won't have challenges. It doesn't mean you ignore planning or preparation. But there's a huge difference between preparing for tomorrow and living in fear of tomorrow. Think of it like driving. You glance at the road ahead to know where you're going, but if your eyes are always fixed on the horizon, you'll miss the turns, the scenery, and maybe even the danger right in front of you. The present moment is where your real strength is. It's the only place where action happens, where love is shared, where peace is felt. And yet, it's the place we abandon most easily. So the next time your mind starts racing into the what-ifs, pause. Take a slow breath in. Feel your shoulders drop. Look around, really look. Notice the colors, the textures, the sounds that were already there, but went unseen. If you've ever felt trapped in worry, I'd love for you to share in the comments. What's one small thing in your present moment that brings you peace right now? It could be as simple as a cup of tea, a pet sleeping nearby, or the quiet hum of morning. Because here's the truth: when you return to the present, you're not running from life, you're finally meeting it. Part 3. Thoughts are not always the truth. There's a simple truth that took me years to understand. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel's a kind man, always willing to help a friend, always the first to show up when someone needs him. But inside his own head, it's a different story. His thoughts are brutal. You're not good enough. They don't really like you. You're going to fail. And here's the twist. None of it was actually happening in the real world. People liked him. His work was solid. Life was, in many ways, okay. But Daniel's mind, it was like a wild monkey. In Buddhism, they call it the monkey mind, jumping from one fear to the next. Restless, never still. The danger is, when you hear a voice in your head often enough, you start to believe it. And before you know it, you're living inside a story your mind wrote for you, one that might not have any basis in reality. One day, Daniel's meditation teacher gave him a challenge. Daniel, for the next week, don't try to change your thoughts. Just watch them. Imagine they're clouds drifting across the sky. You can see them, but you don't have to chase them. At first, it felt impossible. His mind would yell, "You're going to mess this up!" And instantly, his stomach would tighten. But slowly, something strange happened. By simply noticing without reacting, Daniel realized most of these thoughts came and went, like passing weather. One moment, "You're a failure." The next, "I'm hungry. What's for lunch?" And he saw the absurdity how the mind could jump from deep existential doom to sandwich preferences in the span of 10 seconds. That's when he truly understood. Thoughts are not facts. They're just mental events. Think about it. Your mind produces thousands of thoughts a day. Some are helpful, sure, But many are outdated fears, borrowed opinions, or random noise. Why give them the power to define who you are? This doesn't mean ignoring all your thoughts. Some deserve your attention. But you get to choose. You can be the driver, not the passenger. Here's a practice you can try the next time your mind tells you a story that feels heavy. Pause. Take one deep breath and simply say to yourself, "I'm noticing that I'm having the thought," and then fill in the blank. For example, "I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough." See the difference? You've created space between you and the thought. You've shifted from being inside the storm to watching it from a safe distance. Daniel says that this one shift didn't silence his monkey mind overnight, but it stopped the monkey from running his life. He still has self-doubt sometimes. We all do. But now, he sees those thoughts for what they are, passing clouds in a vast sky. And here's something I'd love to hear from you. Drop it in the comments if you feel like sharing. What's one unhelpful thought you've noticed lately? And what happened when you didn't automatically believe it? Because once you learn that you don't have to believe everything you think, you'll find a freedom no one can take away. Part 4. You can't control everything, but you can control your response. There's something that can change your life forever once you truly understand it. You can't control everything, but you can always control your response. Let me share the story of Claire. Claire was the kind of person who had a plan for everything. She liked things neat, predictable, safe, but then life decided otherwise. In 1 year, she lost her job, her relationship ended, and her father got seriously ill. Everything she had worked so hard to keep under control just slipped through her fingers. At first, she fought it. She stayed up late, scrolling through job postings, making endless lists, replaying every what if in her mind. But the more she tried to control the chaos, the more powerless she felt. One evening, while visiting her dad in the hospital, he said something that stopped her in her tracks. "Claire, storms are not meant to be controlled. You just need to know how to stand in the rain without drowning." That night, Claire sat in her car, listening to the sound of rain on the windshield. For the first time in months, she didn't make a plan. She just breathed. She realized she couldn't change the fact that her dad was sick. She couldn't speed up the job search. She couldn't erase the heartbreak. But she could choose right here, right now, how she was going to meet the storm. In Buddhism, this is called equanimity, the quiet strength that comes when you stop trying to control the ocean and instead learn how to ride the waves. The truth is, no matter how hard we try, life will hand us things we didn't ask for. But there's a freedom in letting go of the illusion that you must control it all. You start to see your peace doesn't have to depend on perfect circumstances. Here's something you can try the next time life feels overwhelming. Pause. Take one deep breath in and a slow breath out. Then ask yourself, what's one small, steady step I can take right now without needing to fix everything? Sometimes that step is making a phone call. Sometimes it's going for a walk. And sometimes it's simply choosing not to react until your mind is calm. Claire began doing this daily, and slowly, the grip of fear loosened. She still had challenges, but she stopped living in a constant fight against reality. She learned that strength isn't about forcing life to go your way. It's about meeting whatever comes with clarity, calm, and compassion. And here's the beautiful part. When you respond from a place of calm instead of panic, You make better decisions. You see more clearly. You protect your energy. And most importantly, you stop handing your inner peace over to circumstances you can't control. If you've ever been through something you couldn't change, but found a way to face it with calm, share it in the comments. Your story might be the thing that gives someone else hope today. Because when life throws a storm your way, the question isn't, how can I stop the rain? The real question is, how can I dance in it and still stay warm? Part 5. The worst day is also part of what shapes you. I want to tell you something that might sound strange at first. The worst day of your life might actually be the day that builds you. I know when you're in the middle of pain, that feels impossible to believe. But let me share the story of James. James was a small business owner. For years, he worked 14-hour days, poured every ounce of himself into his company, and thought he was finally secure. But one economic downturn, and everything collapsed. Overnight, he went from shaking hands with clients to packing boxes in an empty office. That day, he sat in his car, staring at the steering wheel, thinking, "This is it. I've failed. Everything I built is gone." It was, without a doubt, the worst day of his life. But here's the thing. What James didn't know then was that this moment was not just an ending. It was the planting of a seed. In Buddhism, there's a phrase, turning poison into medicine. It means that the very experiences that feel unbearable can become the soil where strength, patience, and compassion grow. The pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. In the weeks after his loss, James started volunteering at a community food bank, not because he had a big plan, just because he needed to do something other than sit at home with his thoughts. And there, packing grocery bags for strangers, he noticed something. For the first time in years, he was listening, really listening, to their stories, their struggles. His own pain began to open him to theirs. That's when the shift happened. He realized that losing his business didn't strip him of his worth. It stripped him of illusions. The illusion that his identity was tied only to success. The illusion that life should always go according to plan. Slowly, James rebuilt not the same business, but a new life grounded in something deeper. He started a smaller company that focused on sustainability and hired people from the very food bank he'd once volunteered at. He said, "That worst day, it broke me, but it also broke me open." And maybe that's the point. The moments that shatter us are the same moments that plant the seeds of who we are meant to become. If you're going through something heavy right now, I'm not here to tell you to just be positive. That's not real life. But I will tell you this, what feels unbearable today might one day be the very thing that shapes your strength, sharpens your patience, and deepens your compassion for others. So, the next time you're in pain, ask yourself, how can I use this? How can I turn this poison into medicine? You might be surprised by the answer. If you've ever lived through a worst day and found that somehow it made you stronger, share it in the comments. Someone out there might be in the middle of their own storm right now, and your story could be the light they need to see the other side. Because sometimes life doesn't just give us sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it gives us rainstorms so that the seeds inside us can finally grow. Part 6. Faith as the antidote to fear. Fear has a way of making everything look bigger, darker, and closer than it really is. It whispers in your ear, "You're not ready. You're not strong enough. You won't make it this time." But here's the thing, fear lies. Because if you pause for a moment and look back, you'll see a long trail of moments you thought would break you, but didn't. Faith is not about closing your eyes and hoping for the best. It's about opening your eyes wide, remembering every mountain you've already climbed, and telling yourself, if I could get through that storm, I can get through this one too. Let me tell you about James, a friend I met years ago. He was in his late 42nd when his business collapsed. Overnight, his income was gone, his confidence shattered. He told me, "It feels like the ground just disappeared under my feet." He was terrified of the future, how to pay the bills, how to start over at his age. But little by little, he began to remember other times in his life when things had fallen apart. His first failed marriage, the illness he battled in his 32nd, the job he lost in his 22nd. Every single time he thought it was the end, but it wasn't. That memory was the seed of his faith. In Buddhism, there's a teaching about impermanence. Everything changes. No joy lasts forever, but no pain does either. When you truly understand that, fear begins to loosen its grip. Because if nothing is permanent, not even your struggles, then the dark cloud hanging over you is only passing through. Faith is like standing in the middle of a storm, soaking wet, but knowing in your bones the sun will come back. You don't know exactly when, but you know it will. James rebuilt his life. Not the same way it was before, better. He started a smaller business, doing work he actually loved. And when I asked him what kept him going in those first few months, he said, "I just kept telling myself, this won't last forever. Neither the pain nor the fear." That's the gift of faith. It doesn't promise an easy road, but it gives you the courage to take the next step, even when you can't see the whole path. So the next time fear tries to convince you that the future is something to dread, pause. Look back at the battles you've already fought. Remind yourself that you've been here before, in one way or another, and you're still here. If you've ever had a moment when your faith carried you through something you thought you couldn't survive, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs today. Because fear says you can't. Faith says, watch me. Part 7. Seeing challenges as the path, not the wall. Most people see challenges like a wall. Solid. Cold. Blocking the way forward. But what if the wall in front of you is actually the road you're meant to walk? Let me tell you about Maria. She's a single mom I met during a mindfulness retreat in California. Maria had lost her job in the middle of the pandemic. On top of that, her teenage son was struggling with depression. She told me, "It feels like I'm stuck in a tunnel with no light at the end." For weeks, she tried to push past her problems, forcing solutions, rushing for answers, desperate to make the pain stop. But the more she fought, the heavier it felt. One day during the retreat, we were doing a walking meditation, and I shared with her something my Buddhist teacher once told me. When you hit a wall, look closer. Sometimes it's just a door you haven't learned how to open. That moment shifted something in her. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this problem?" she started asking, "What is this problem trying to teach me?" Here's the thing. Every obstacle carries a seed. The seed of a lesson you need. The seed of a skill you haven't mastered. The seed of strength you didn't know you had. Maria began to see her son's struggle as an invitation to slow down and truly listen to him. She learned patience, deeper empathy, and the ability to sit in discomfort without trying to fix it right away. She also realized that losing her job wasn't the end. It was a chance to finally pursue the freelance work she'd been afraid to try. In Buddhism, we say that the lotus grows in muddy water. The flower doesn't bloom in perfect conditions. It blooms because of the mud. Your challenges are the mud. Without them, you wouldn't grow into the version of yourself that can handle what's coming next. Think about it. How many times have you looked back at a hardship and thought, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am today? In the moment, it felt like punishment. But in hindsight, it was preparation. When you shift your view from "this is blocking me" to "this is guiding me," fear begins to fade. Because instead of fighting the storm, you're learning how to walk through it. And each step makes you wiser, steadier, and less afraid of the next challenge. Maria told me months later, "I used to pray for the hard times to disappear. Now, I pray for the strength to meet them with open eyes." So, here's my question for you. What's the wall in your life right now? Could it be that it's not stopping you? It's shaping you? If you've ever had a moment when you realized your biggest obstacle was actually your greatest teacher, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Your story might be the rope someone else needs to climb over their own wall. Because sometimes, the path forward isn't around the obstacle. It's straight through it. Part 8. Practicing compassion for yourself. When was the last time you spoke to yourself like you would to a dear friend? Be honest. Most of us don't. Instead, when life gets heavy, we pile on more weight with our own words. You should be stronger. Why can't you handle this? Other people have it worse. What's wrong with you? I remember talking to James, a corporate manager who came to one of my workshops. From the outside, he looked successful, great job, nice home, the kind of guy people describe as having it all together. But when the company downsized and he lost his position, he told me he wasn't sleeping. Not because he was job hunting, but because his own thoughts were attacking him. "I'm pathetic," he said. "I should have seen it coming. And the worst one, I'm not enough." Here's the truth no one told. James, self-criticism doesn't make you stronger. It just digs the hole deeper. When you're already hurting, judgment is like pouring salt on the wound. Buddhist wisdom teaches that compassion isn't just for others. It starts here, with you. And self-compassion isn't about making excuses. It's about telling yourself the truth, without the cruelty. I asked James to imagine his best friend sitting in front of him, saying the exact same words he had just said to himself. Would he look that friend in the eyes and say, "Yeah, you are pathetic"? Of course not. He said he'd probably put a hand on their shoulder and say, "Hey, this is hard, but you're doing your best. You're going to get through this." So I told him, that friend is you. And you deserve the same kindness. It felt strange for him at first, like he was letting himself off the hook. But over time, speaking to himself with gentleness gave him something he hadn't felt in months: the energy to try again. You see, the mind heals faster when it feels safe. Self-compassion creates that safety. It's the emotional equivalent of a warm blanket on a cold night, not because it fixes the weather, but because it gives you the warmth to endure it. And here's something fascinating. Studies show that people who treat themselves with compassion after a setback actually bounce back faster than those who are harsh with themselves. The mind opens up. Problem solving improves. Resilience grows. Think about it. When has beating yourself up ever made you better at anything? If criticism worked, most of us would be perfect by now. So the next time you're in a storm, try this place. Your hand over your heart. Take a slow breath and say to yourself, "This is a moment of suffering. I'm allowed to feel this, and I'm going to be gentle with myself while I find my way forward. This is a moment of suffering." It's not weakness. It's wisdom. Because when you're your own safe place, fear loses its grip. I'd love to hear from you. What's one kind thing you could say to yourself today, right now, in this moment? Drop it in the comments. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Remember, the voice in your head can be your harshest critic or your greatest ally. You get to choose. Part 9. Protecting your mind by limiting exposure to what drains you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt peaceful, really peaceful, and then, within minutes, your mood shifted because of something you saw or heard? Maybe it was a headline screaming about disaster. Maybe it was a conversation with someone who complains about everything. Or maybe it was scrolling through social media and feeling that slow, heavy drip of negativity. Here's what I've learned, both from my own life and from Buddhist wisdom. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant and whatever you let grow inside will eventually take over. And if you keep letting in weeds, constant bad news, toxic environments, people who only focus on what's wrong, then even the healthiest seeds of peace don't stand a chance. I think about Maria, a single mother I once coached. She was always anxious, always on edge. But when we looked closely, it wasn't just her workload causing stress. It was the fact that she started every morning reading news that made her fearful, spent her lunch break with coworkers who only talked about office politics, and ended her day scrolling through angry debates online. Her nervous system never got a break. It was like leaving the garden gate wide open for weeds to grow 24/7. Now, I'm not saying we should hide from reality or pretend bad things don't exist, but there's a difference between being informed and being overwhelmed. So I challenged Maria to do something simple, what I call a mental detox. For 1 week, she limited news to just 10 minutes a day from one trusted source. She politely excused herself from gossip-heavy conversations at work, and she replaced her late-night social media scrolling with a calming audiobook. The result? By the end of the week, her mind felt lighter. She had more energy. And here's the interesting part. She didn't lose awareness of what was happening in the world, but she gained back the power to respond without drowning in it. Because here's the truth. Your mental space is sacred, and you get to decide who and what gets in. This is where Buddhist mindfulness aligns so beautifully with modern psychology. Both teach that environment matters. If you spend your time in rooms filled with complaints, you'll start to see the world through that same cloudy lens. If you fill your mind with constant fear-based messaging, your nervous system learns to stay in fight-or-flight mode. But when you choose intentionally to limit that exposure, you create space for peace to grow. And from that peace comes clarity. So, I invite you to reflect. What's one source of negativity you could reduce, even just a little, starting today? Is it a certain app, a television channel, a person who drains your energy? This isn't about cutting people off cold. Sometimes it's simply about setting gentle boundaries, choosing when and how you engage. Protect your mental garden. Nurture it. Because when you do, you'll discover something powerful. Peace is not just found in meditation. It's built in the choices you make every day. And I'd love to hear from you. What's one small boundary you've set that's made a big difference for your peace of mind? Share it in the comments. Your story might be the inspiration someone else needs today. Closing. Letting worries drift away like passing clouds. Worry doesn't disappear overnight. It doesn't just pack its bags and leave because you asked it to. But here's the truth I've discovered through mindfulness, through simply being present, and through trusting that storms pass, worry loses its grip. Think about the sky for a moment. Clouds don't stay forever. They drift. Sometimes they're heavy and dark. Sometimes light and soft. But no matter what they look like, the sky remains untouched. It's still there, vast, steady, unbroken. Your mind is that sky. Your worries are just the clouds. When you practice presence, you begin to see that you don't have to chase the clouds away. You don't have to fight them. You can just notice and let them pass. I've seen this in my own life. There was a time I thought peace only came when everything around me was fixed. The bills paid, the relationship smooth, the news gentle. But life doesn't work that way. There's always another wave, another unexpected twist. The shift happened when I stopped waiting for the outside world to calm down before I let myself feel calm inside. It's strange, but when I took that first mindful breath in the middle of chaos, I realized peace isn't something I find out there. It's something I return to in here. These principles we've talked about, they're not quick hacks. They're not magic spells to erase all anxiety. They're a map, a kind of inner compass that points you back to solid ground, even when everything else feels like it's spinning. Each mindful breath is like taking one step on that path, and every step matters. Because with each one, you're not just surviving the storm, you're learning to stand in it without losing your balance. So, maybe tonight, when the thoughts start swirling, you just pause. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice your breath without trying to change it. And remind yourself, I am the sky, not the clouds. I wonder who in your life might need to hear that today. If someone's face just came to mind, maybe send them this video. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is share a little piece of peace. And as we close, I'll leave you with this thought. Your mind has a home, and it's not in the chaos, it's in the stillness that's always been there, waiting for you. The next time the storm rolls in, come back home.